They call it a roadside motel. Out here, it feels like a trap with neon teeth. The Crosswinds Motel squats in a U of peeling doors and sunburned stucco, facing a two-lane highway that never remembers your name. The sign out front hums "Vacancy" in a sick green loop that flickers twice when the wind picks up. By sundown, the wind never stops. It learns your breath and syncs with it until you're not sure who started first. My name's Riley. Night clerk. Keys. Cash drawer. Laundry tickets. Coffee that tastes like boiled nails. My shift begins when the sun drops and ends when the shadows forget to. Mr. Grady, boss, owner, widow, believer in receipts, says nights are quieter. He says it with a face like a locked drawer. There are 20 rooms on the property. The brass key fobs go 401 to 420, but there's a gap where the ring should be. There is no 404 on the wall rack, just a bright, clean space like a missing tooth. That's a lie you learn to repeat. There is no 404. People still ask. The front office smells like old coffee and powdered lemon cleaner. There's a bell that no one ever rings and a rotary phone Mr. Grady refuses to replace. The booths across the road glow a diner blue and then cut to black when the generator hiccups. The highway pours a steady stream of headlights into the parking lot and then looks away before anything can be blamed on it. Crew's small. Grady runs the books and pretends the night has rules. Luce does linens and leaves thin lines of salt under thresholds when she thinks no one is watching. Ty handles maintenance and calls everything just a draft until something moves that shouldn't. I sit behind the desk, watch the cameras that sometimes forget to record, and answer a phone that shouldn't ring after midnight, but does. First time I almost broke the one rule that matters was a month ago. Sun was dropping in a slice of tangerine behind the billboard that promises new homes soon to a field of bleached weeds. Luz cupped salt in her palm and scattered it like she was feeding invisible birds. Ty laughed. Then the wind shifted and put a smell in the air. Industrial cleaner and lilies, that funeral mix. Grady came out of the back room with his key ring in a fist and looked at the empty peg between 403 and 405. He doesn't look at me when he warns me. He looks at the gap. "Lock the lobby before the orange leaves the sky," he said. "If a door you don't count asks you to open it, you don't." "That's not even a sentence," Ty muttered. Grady ignored him. "You hear anything from the north wing after dark, Riley? Keep walking. If it needs you, it will sound like someone you love." I didn't laugh then. I should have. The Crosswinds has sounds. Compressors groan awake, ice machine coughs, highway whispers, tire whine confessions. But there's another. Rhythm some nights, quiet and patient. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock. It arrives through the walls like a memory you didn't consent to. It knows where you are. Guests arrive with the dusk. A couple from Wyoming with sunburnt noses and a cooler that leaks. A salesman with a suitcase full of neckties and a smile he puts on like a pair of shoes. A girl with glitter on her cheeks who pays cash and doesn't want questions. I assign keys, slide twice-folded maps across a counter nicked with cigarette burns, make friendly noises that buy me silence later. Luz drifts in, hair pinned, hands dry from bleach. "You got the salt?" she asks, like she's asking for towels. I pass the plastic container under the counter. She keeps her eyes on the tiles as she draws a thin, white seam along the baseboard behind my chair. "For the ones that crawl," she says, not like a joke. Ty pops out of the maintenance closet with an armful of filters and a grin he doesn't feel. New guest in 409 says his TV keeps showing snow, he says. Told him to smack it. He smacks the air. Technically works. Technically, I say. We all like that word. It makes rules without promising they'll keep you. At 8:13, the wind climbs a step. The vacancy hum drops 2 notes. The cameras on the north wing fuzz to static for 1 breath and then return. And when they do, something on the monitor looks different. It takes me a second to see it. Door 405, then 406, then nothing, then 407. The gap stands there like a grin. The stucco between doors holds a shadow it shouldn't. Ty's mouth keeps moving about filters, but his eyes have gone to the screen. You see that? He says. Draft, I say, because someone has to. The rotary phone clicks to life with a little corkscrew of sound. The line from the office to the room blocks is old copper. Mr. Grady says it carries too much history. The dial glows and unhealthy cream. When it rings, it's always from a room number that makes sense. A guest wants towels. A drunk wants directions. A mistake wants to be forgiven. The phone rings once. Front desk, I say. My voice is the version of me that doesn't tremble. Nothing. Just the hush of distance. Then a soft breath, as if the line itself has lungs. And then, Rye. My sister used to say it that way, cutting my name in half when she wanted me to. Come in from the yard. No one here knows that. She's 3 states away and doesn't call me. We don't do that anymore. Who is this? I ask. Because you have to. Open the door, the voice says. The words are right, but the weight on them isn't. It's like hearing a song you love played by a machine that learned it wrong. What door? 3 knocks answer me. Not on the glass behind me. Not at the office door. They arrive in my ear, mapped through the copper line like knuckles on bone. Knock, 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 polite as a neighbor, patient as debt. The caller ID window is just a strip of scuffed plastic, but the little glowing numbers in it can still hurt you. They change, one by one, under the yellow bulb. 404. There is no 404. Rye, the voice murmurs, the syllable soft as a childhood secret. Don't make me wait. The line dies with a soft click, like lips sealing. I stare at the rotary phone until my reflection in the plastic window looks like somebody else. There is no 404. I don't say it. I don't even let my mouth make the shape. Mr. Grady opens the office door like the hinges owe him money. He doesn't ask what the call was. He looks at the pegboard, at the bright clean gap where a key should hang, and then at my hands to make sure they're empty. Lobby locks now, he says. Orange is thin. It rang from... I stop before the number. The syllables sit behind my teeth like hot coins. Grady nods once, as if I answered perfectly. He lays his key ring on the counter and thumbs through brass ovals stamped 401 to 420. He skips the space without touching it. You don't say it, you don't write it, you don't think it too sharp. Numbers can be roads. Roads to what? To here, he says, and that's somehow worse. The bell above the office door chirps as Luce slips in sideways, a plastic deli cup of salt balanced on her palm. Wine's mean, she says, like she's giving a weather report. Took the line off 406. She sets the cup down and glances at the phone. Her mouth thins. You heard the lilies? I smelled them, I say. Like cleaner in church. That's how it knocks, she says softly. Ty shoulders into the doorway, with a flashlight and a smile that only gets used in daylight. Filters swapped, he announces, like he's coming back with news of the harvest. His gaze slides to the security monitor stacked in the corner. North Wing, 405, 406, Gap, 407. The stucco between 406 and 407 holds a darker rectangle, a shade deeper than shadow. Ty frowns. Camera's clipping again. Draft, I say, because the word is a leash we all take turns holding. The desk phone flashes. Room 406. Front desk, I answer. A woman's voice, careful and polite the way people get when they don't want to make trouble. Hi. Sorry. I think the room next to me has a radio on. It's talking. It keeps saying knock knock. A pause. And there's this smell? Lilies, I say before I can stop myself. Yeah. Fear threads her word. It's getting stronger. Could someone... On my way, Ty says, already reaching across the counter for a spare key. Grady slaps his hand away, not hard, just loud. No one alone, he says. Take the boy. I am the boy. I grab the salt cup. Luz's eyes find mine. She taps the rim. Pinch for your tongue if the voice gets close. Spit after. That's appetizing, I say. Alive is appetizing, she says back. Grady fishes a small spiral notebook from beneath the register. The cover has been peeled back and restuck so many times it looks like old skin. Inside, the pages are cramped with names, dates, license plates, credit slips stapled like butterflies. He flips to a section where the paper edges are darker, as if a fire once came close and changed its mind. He stops on a page that isn't there, 2 stubs where it was torn out. Between them an imprint remains, faint and stubborn. 404, indented by a heavy hand. He closes the book. If it talks, let the talking be only it. Don't answer. You don't owe it the shape of your voice. Does anyone? I ask. His jaw works. Someone did, he says. Once. We step into the night, Ty and I. The air thick with the metallic cough of the ice machine, and a sweetness underneath that does not belong to anything alive. The vacancy sign hums like a trapped insect. The wind lifts the edges of the doormat and sets them down with tiny slaps like applause. The walkway to the north wing is poured concrete painted the color of old gum. Our shoe soles stick and peel. We pass 403, 405, the paint blistered in the same blistered way. The camera above 406 blinks red, then green, then nothing at all before deciding on red again. Someone, loose, has drawn a line of salt across the threshold of 406, a thin, bright shore. Most of it is gone, smeared into a comet tail by a heel, or a gust, or a hand. From inside 406, a radio voice murmurs, or maybe it's water in the walls. A syllable rises up like a bubble. Rye. Ty's grin evaporates. You hear that? I don't answer, I say to no one in particular. He kneels and draws a fresh line of salt, slow and deliberate, the way you trace a name on a grave you don't believe in. The hotel room door is the kind with a little brass latch and a peephole. Someone stickered over years ago with a smiley face. The smile doesn't help. Ty knocks. Normal, human. 2 knuckles, 2 beats. Maintenance, he calls. Everything okay in there? A pause. The woman speaks again, closer now, as if her mouth is against the crack. The radio stopped, but something else started. What else? Ty asks. Someone's breathing. In the wall. I look at the stucco between 406 and 407. It's just wall. Bad paint, hairline cracks, a postcard's worth of shadow. Then the shadow deepens, one shade, two, like water filling a pool. A rectangle suggests itself. The suggestion gathers edges. For the length of a held breath, the wall remembers being a door. Something on the other side gives a small, polite knock, knock, knock. The smell of lilies presses at my sinuses like a thumb. My stomach crawls. Instinct says, name it. Say the number. Pin it to the board with a word. Luce's warning lands in my throat. I pinch salt between finger and thumb and press it to my tongue. It's a shock of brine and cheap plastic. Tears jump to my eyes the way they do when you dive too fast. The breathing in the wall changes. It becomes my sister's. The way she sounded when she had a cold and asked me to read to her because the words in her book were swimming. Rye, she whispers through 4 inches of concrete and 40 miles of history. Don't be mean. Let me in. Ty's hand tightens on the flashlight. Draft, he says, but it's a prayer now, not an answer. Behind us, far back toward the office, the rotary phone starts to ring. One chime, like a bell for class. The camera above us clicks. The little red light dies. In the instant before the feed goes black, the monitor inside will show it. That darker rectangle becoming a slit, becoming a seam, becoming, don't, Mr. Grady says behind us, voice carrying down the walkway like a rope thrown to drowning. I don't know how he got there so fast. Maybe he never left. His keys jingle once. I keep my eyes on the wall and my tongue on the salt. If it needs me, it can learn what no tastes like. Grady doesn't raise his voice again. He doesn't have to. The word don't settles over the walkway like a second atmosphere. Ty lowers the flashlight. The shadow in the stucco decides it was never a seam. The lilies thin to a sweetness you could blame on someone's shampoo if you were hungry for lies. From inside 406, the woman says, small and careful. Is someone there? Front desk, I manage, not looking at the wall. You're okay. Keep your door latched. We'll comp you earplugs and a fan. Ty mouths earplugs, and I shrug, because sometimes the truth needs props. Grady steps between us and the almost door, and lays his palm flat to the stucco the way a father checks a fever. His skin looks gray in the security light. For a second, his fingers press into the surface like it's not entirely sure it's dry yet. Then he withdraws, wipes his hand on his slacks, and leaves a pale smear of dust like ash. Walk, he says. Don't look back. We obey. That's the secret of rules. You don't have to believe them to follow them. Back in the office, Luce is lining the sill with salt as if it were sugar for a cake that will bake itself. She watches us return with her head tilted like a listening dog. It tried to make a mouth, she says. Not a question. It tried, Grady says. He moves to the pegboard, the bright clean gap between 403 and 405, and stares at it like it owes him money and a reason. Then he plucks 406 and 407 off their hooks and lays them on the counter. What are you doing? Ty asks. Giving the house a limp, Grady says. If the doors next to it wander, it has to drag itself farther to find purchase. Is that physics? I say. It's stubbornness, he says. Sometimes that's close enough. The rotary phone ticks as it cools. The cameras on the north wing decide they remember how to be cameras again. In 406, the woman paces once past the window, carrying a phone charger and a paperback, her silhouette jittering under bad glass. Everything is normal the way a wound closes, from the outside first. Grady opens the little spiral ledger. He doesn't look at the torn-out page this time. He flips 2 pages back to a receipt stapled crooked, and a line written mostly on top of the staples shine. No fresh flowers on property after dusk. Underneath, no floral scents. Below that, in different ink, especially lilies. It started with a funeral, he says, not looking up. Guest brought a bouquet. She said the room felt less empty with it breathing beside her. Breathing, Ty repeats. Flowers rot sweet, Lou says. That's a door all its own. Grady closes. The book. House rule. We tell people allergies. They nod. Some listen. Some don't. The ones who don't. He stops there, and instead slides open the bottom drawer where we keep batteries and lost and found and a little tin with red wax on the lid. He takes out a roll of do not disturb hangers, the cheap kind, and a spool of red thread. He threads one hanger and ties a knot that looks more like a stitch than a bow. If it presses again tonight, you put this on 406 and 407, both sides, everywhere a hand could reach. Do signs matter? I ask. Everything is language, he says. Some of it is older than words. He meets my eyes then, just long enough to pass a caution like a coin. And you don't say the number, not even to yourself cleanly. You step around it in your head. You think 3-0-5 and 3-0-6. If you cut the number into your breath, it will hear you counting. I didn't say it, I tell him. It comes out defensive and 6 years old. He nods once, then tilts his head at the phone, as if it's a dog he's training not to maul. It knows you, though. It chose the name. It will keep choosing. I can change my name, I say. It can change its voice, Lou says. It will keep up. On the monitor, a pickup rolls into the lot and parks crooked across 2 spaces, like someone who doesn't plan to leave long enough to follow rules. The driver sits there while the engine idles and the cabin light refuses to switch off. His face is lost in glare. Grady watches the truck for 3 long seconds, then turns away. You two do a lap, he says to Ty and me. Signs on both sides of 406 and 407. Lust, sweep the line back in with salt. And if it tries to make a mouth again, Ty asks. Then you ignore it together, Grady says. Nobody alone on that side. Not since Kara. The name drops with weight. The ledger is full of names, but we don't say most of them out loud. Who's Kara? I ask, before my sense of self-preservation can kick the question in the knees. Loses, hands pause. White dust ascending from her fingers like moths. Ty stares at the knot of red thread as if it's telling him something in a language he almost knows. Grady doesn't answer right away. He opens the register instead and counts 5s, and ones like math could make a fence. When he does speak, he speaks to the air. Night clerk before you, he says. Answering person. Thought she could out-narrate the house. She said the number once like a dare. The line rang for her night after night until she took the handset to the north wing and put it down on the concrete like a cup at a table. She waited for it to ring again, and it did. And she answered in the dark. The door got a shape. It kept it. What happened to her? Ty asks. She paid for that dare, Grady says. We got 2 rooms where one should be now, but only one takes money. The wind shunts against the office window like a body. The vacancy sign flickers and chooses the first letter to fail. ACNY hums to itself. Suddenly not a promise, but a diagnosis. I take the threaded "do not disturb" hangers and the salt and the cheap courage you get when 3 people are looking at you like you could be something besides a person the dark can hold. Ty grabs the flashlight and shakes it as if light were a liquid you coax out. Luz tucks a pinch of salt into my palm without asking if I'll use it. We step into the night again. The pickup's engine cuts, and the sudden silence leaves a shape. Behind. The driver door opens. A man in a suit climbs out holding nothing but his own attention. He turns his head toward the north wing before he turns it toward the office. He stands still for a moment like he's letting the wind tell him a story. Then he lifts his hand in a wave that isn't for us. Somewhere between 406 and 407, something answers with 3 polite knocks. The 3 polite knocks ripple the air and die. The suited man lowers his lifted hand like he just finished waving at a train that didn't stop. He turns his head toward the office light, then toward us, toward the gap that pretended to be a door, and then remembered its manners. "Evening," he says. His voice is hotel lobby smooth, the kind you only hear near carpet. The suit is midnight with a shine that doesn't come from money so much as attention. His shoes are dusty in a way that suggests he walked here from a place without sidewalks. Ty angles his flashlight down, not on the man, not on the wall, on the concrete, like light is a leash. I hold up the 2 "do not disturb" hangers threaded with red. Props that feel idiotic until they work. "We're full," I say. The man smiles. Like that's fine with him. "No, you're not," he says, and the wind chooses that moment to peel the V off vacancy for a second. "I have a reservation." Grady's footsteps come up behind us without sound, which would be impressive if it didn't make my stomach clench. He positions himself where a door would be if the world were crueler. "We can put you in 410, he says, "or 412. King bed, quiet." The man's eyes flick to the space between 406 and 407 and linger there a heartbeat too long, like he's reading a line only he can see. "I'm a creature of habit," he says. "I'd prefer my usual." No one moves. Out here, usual is a threat. "What name is the reservation under?" I ask. Because that's what the script requires when you don't have a script for this. He reaches inside his jacket and produces a slip of cardstock the color of old teeth. There's a printed line on it. "Confirmation," followed by a rectangle of gray where someone scrubbed it with a pencil eraser until the numbers let go. In the lower corner, a small red triangle is stamped into the paper, deep enough to leave a dent you can feel. Luce would know what to call that stamp. She isn't here. She is inside, laying down lines like fences you can step over if you don't. "Mind bleeding." "Sir," Grady says. The word has edges. "We don't have that room." "You do," the man says, kind and absolute. "You just don't sell it to people who can leave reviews." He holds up his other hand then. For a stupid second, I think he's going to show a badge, the way people do on television when they want to seem inevitable. He doesn't. He's holding a florist's box. Long, white, bowed with a ribbon that is the polite kind of red, the red you can bring to your grandmother's funeral and no one will whisper. The smell hits on the next gust. Lilies, green water, something sweet that has already started to say goodbye. "No fresh flowers after dusk," I say, because rules are what I have. Allergies. He looks genuinely sorry. I'm not staying. The night? He says, as if that makes it an apology. I only need to pay my respects. To whom? Ty asks. The man considers the question as if it were a menu choice. To the room, he says finally. To the idea of it. Grady's face does a thing I've only seen once, when the highway delivered us a family with eyes like they already lived in the rear view. It tightens, then smooths, like he's ironing a shirt while he's still wearing it. You should go, he says softly. Whatever that paper is, it isn't for here anymore. The suited man sets the florist's box on the concrete ledge with care that feels practiced. He kneels the way people kneel who never kneel and slides the lid back. White trumpets unfold from tissue. The smell rises and flares and plants a flag behind my eyes. Don't, Grady says, the word a low chord. That scent calls. I know, the man says, not looking up. He lifts one lily, its throat yellowed with pollen like a bruise, and rests it against the stucco where the shadow deepened earlier. For a beat, nothing happens. Then the red thread on my do not disturb hanger twitches. A spider line plucked by breath. The stucco darkens. Not all at once, not theatrically. The way paper darkens when oil touches it. A seam suggests itself. A seam becomes a thought. The lily's petals tremble in a breeze that doesn't exist anywhere else. Draft. Ty says, but the word sounds like he's trying to hand it to someone and they won't take it. The man stands. He doesn't step closer. He doesn't need to. The wall steps toward him, the way a conversation leans in when it knows your secrets. He reaches into his pocket and produces a coin. It isn't money, I know. It's pale metal, soft-looking, with a hole punched cleanly through its center. He thumbs it like a rosary, then holds it up so the hole frames that darkening rectangle. A token, he says conversationally, as if this were a vending machine and not the skin of a hungry thing. Payment helps. For what? I ask, because I hate that I want to know. For passage, he says. He presses the coin to the stucco where the seam is thinking about a doorknob. The coin doesn't stick. It simply stays, the way some objects remember gravity wrong. The hole hums. Not a sound, exactly. More like the air remembering a note it used to be. Grady moves faster than should be possible for a man who has spent his life standing behind a counter counting other people's mornings. He takes the little tin with red, wax from his pocket. When did he put it there? And thumbs it open. The wax inside is the color of warnings. He digs his knuckle into it and drags a line across the new seam the way a mother drags an arm in front of a child at a sudden stop. The R. Smell of lilies hits the wax and sours. The seam hesitates. The red thread tenses, then slackens, as if something behind it took a breath and decided against the next one. The suited man's smile thins but doesn't leave. Motel magic, he says, amused. Salt and strings and candle ends. I respect a local practice. Local practice keeps locals, Grady says. Which you're not. Not anymore, the man says, and for a blink there is a human grief in his eyes, heavy enough to knock the wind from a room. Then it's gone. He retrieves the coin. It comes free with a tiny click like a tooth tugged. He drops it into his pocket, as if he never meant it to work. He closes the florist's box, lifts it, and finally looks at me like he's been saving me for last. Riley, he says, using the whole name, not the one that cuts. Don't pick up if it calls again, tonight. How do you know it will? He glances at the gap, which is wall again. Because it's patient when it wants something, he says, and because Kara taught it your shifts. The lilies breathe one last time and then go still. The vacancy sign stutters and finds its V again. Somewhere behind us, the office phone rings once and stops, like a heart checking its work. The man adjusts his tie that never needed adjusting. I'll try again tomorrow, he says, as if this were customer service and not a coastline. I don't like to leave things unvisited. He walks back to his truck without looking behind him. He doesn't have to. The road will do that for him. He pulls out of the lot. The taillights hesitate at the end of the driveway like they're listening for permission, then vanish into wind. Ty exhales like he's been holding his breath since 1998. Who the hell? Not our guest, Grady says. He looks at the wall the way you look at a closed casket, searching for the outline of what will not open. Hang the signs. We do. The Do Not Disturb placards swing in the wind, their red threads trembling like nerves, and for a little while the motel remembers how to be a place that keeps people inside the right number of doors. We finish hanging the signs like stitches after a wound. 2 Do Not Disturb placards, red thread trembling in the crosswinds wind. The stucco between 406 and 407 remembers how to be stucco. The lily's breath thins to the kind of sweetness you can blame on hand soap if you want to sleep. Back in the office, the air tastes like lemon cleaner and old metal. Luz is rubbing the wax tin with her thumb as if warming a stubborn heart. Grady sets the ledger down without opening it, as if the book might read us if he gives it a chance. Who was that guy? Ty asks, dropping into the cracked swivel chair and making it complain. Salesman for hell? Grady considers the question and decides it doesn't deserve an answer. He nods at the security stack. Eyes up, mouths down. On the north wing. Monitor 406's curtain ripples once and settles. 407 stays dark. The gap is only wall. That should help. Somehow it makes my teeth hurt. Luz taps the wax tin. The stamp on his card, she says. Triangle. I've seen it on envelopes. The ones with cash that come when the power company forgets our address. Ty snorts. So the room has a mailing list? Some people make a study of places like this, Grady says, flat. They dress their curiosity in suits so the hunger looks polite. The desk phone lights. 409. Ty groans like the world is conspiring to give him work. Snow again? He says, grabbing the universal remote and his flashlight. If I smack, another CRT tonight, I'm charging a hazard fee. Take the fan, Grady says. For TV? For the smell, Grady says. And don't stand in the doorway. Doors are how things do math. Ty salutes, grabs a box fan that rattles like a jar of screws and heads out. The bell above the office door gives a tired little cheer. I watch him on the monitor, a moving piece of daylight walking the concrete ribbon. He knocks on 409, a sleepy arm opens, he vanishes inside. The TV, in my view of 409, is a pale rectangle, stuttering a blizzard. The rotary phone clicks once like it's remembering how to be a throat. It doesn't ring. It breathes. Luz glances at me and makes a tiny pinching motion in the air. Salt. I oblige. Touch the pinch to my tongue until the edges of everything sharpen. The phone rings once. I lift the handset and hold it to my ear without saying anything. I know that's a kind of answering. I do it anyway because not knowing hurts worse. Silence. A soft mechanical sea. Lines singing to themselves. Then the shape of someone on the line more than the sound of them. A presence leaning into the wire. Rye? It says, gentle as a hallway light. The mouth behind the voice is the one that said my name through lost teeth when we were small and not allowed to run in church. You forgot my book. Come get me. I don't give it the shape of me. I hold the handset like it's a live thing and let the salt burn the back of my tongue. On the monitor, Ty smacks the side of 409's TV and the snow hiccups. For a single frame, the static resolves into something like a hallway camera, a long wall with doors. The numbers are blurry, then the focus decides. 405, 404, 405 again, like a blink. Don't, Luce whispers, and I don't know whether she means the phone or the seeing. The voice tries again, brighter. Riley. It gets the whole name right this time. Then it tries the wrong ones on. The way strangers do. Ryan, Rylan, Riles. When that doesn't work, it tries a laugh that belongs to somebody I almost dated and didn't. It tries my mother's sigh. It tries the boss's keys. Grady sets a palm on the desk so close to my wrist I can feel the heat. Not touching, anchoring. Hang up, he says, calm as a list. If it calls again, I start. It will, he says. Let it leave messages to itself. I set the handset back in the cradle as if it might bite. The bell inside the phone does a small disappointed ring, the way metal does when it has opinions. On the 409 feed, Ty is plugging in the fan. The snow settles to a dull gray, and then, again, for a breath, it finds scenes. A door that isn't there. A brass oval fob on a pegboard with a number that we step around in our mouths. Ty doesn't see it. He turns. His face for a second is the face he thinks he wears when he's joking. It looks younger without the sound. Don't stand in the doorway, I murmur, because that's what Grady said, and because on the 409, Camera Ty has put his shoulder in the jam like he owns the rectangle. The vacancy sign outside coughs, fails the V, coughs again, finds it. The office light hums, brightens, dims. In the upper left of the north wing monitor, a gnat of white floats, dust or dead pixel, and then divides. 2 dots now. They drift from 406 toward the blank stucco like seeds looking for soil. Luce moves. She plucks a roll of red thread from the counter and ties it around the phone cord, a neat little bloodline knot. For confusion, she says, let it get lost in the loops. How much of this is theater? I ask, because if I don't, put words on something, the silence will. All of it, she says, and none of it. Grady flips the ledger with a finger. The torn-out page ghosts through in the press of the paper. He doesn't read it. He looks past it at the pegboard. There's a weight shift in the room. Barely there, like someone decided which foot to stand on. The pegboard clicks. It's a tiny sound, wood against metal. I look because I always do the wrong thing first. The gap between 403 and 405 isn't a gap. A key hangs there, brass oval fob gleaming like it just remembered how. Stamped numbers grin up at us in the soft office light, black paint pressed deep by a steady hand. 4, 0, 4. The temperature in the room drops the way it does when a cloud covers the sun you can't see. The fob is damp as if it came in from rain. That isn't happening. A smell rises, green water, pollen, the aftertaste of a church you don't go to anymore. No, Grady says, and the word comes out old and tired and hard. He doesn't move toward it. He doesn't have to. The key trembles on its hook like a thing that isn't done making a decision. On the monitor, Ty's fan rattles itself into a steady whir. The snow on the TV holds. He laughs, relieved, and says something I can't hear. The audio on our cameras has been dead since before I got hired. Sometimes I think it's a mercy. The phone on the desk rings once. The handset jitters against its cradle like a startled animal. The little plastic window that never tells the truth glows weakly. The numbers don't flip in, they sink up from underneath like bubbles finding the surface. The key on the pegboard swings, gentle, like someone on the other side just gave it a push to see if we'd catch it. The brass oval swings like a slow metronome, counting a song I don't want to learn. The phone's tiny window glows that hurtful order, 404, and the bell inside the handset gives one sulky shiver, aching to be useful. Grady doesn't reach. He never reaches first. "Nobody touches it," he says. "If you name it with your hand, it keeps your print." Luz is already moving. She unwinds more red thread, neat as a nurse, and ties 3 quick knots around the phone cord, then flicks. A salt line along the bottom edge of the pegboard. The grains tick the wood like rain. "Circle, not line," she mutters. "It wants a road. Give it a pen." On the north wing monitor, Ty steps back from 409's TV, satisfied with the fans. White hiss. He leans in the jam to crack a joke at the guest's shoulder. His silhouette is a cutout against the screen's dumb snow. Grady had said, "Don't stand in doorways." Ty is half a foot into ghost arithmetic. The key trembles, then lets go. It drops in slow motion, the way bad things move when your pulse's second hand doubles. It misses the counter by a hair and kisses the edge with a low, bellish ting that puts a taste of pennies in my mouth. It lands on its side, spins once, twice, and then, impossibly, rolls. Keys don't roll. This one does, tight and eager, toward the office door like a beetle that knows where the light is. A pale coin slides out from behind the pegboard and skitters along with it, companionable as a dog. It's the same nothing metal the suited man thumbed. A flat round with a small dead center, punched clean through. The coin stops against my shoe as if it picked me on purpose. When it touches the rubber, a tiny, almost imagined hum runs up. "My bones?" "Don't pick it up," Grady says without looking. "I wasn't going to," I lie, and my fingers flex anyway. The rotary phone breathes. The line inflates with someone else's lungs. It doesn't ring now. It waits. Then a voice arrives, polite as paperwork. "Riley?" Not the slice name. The whole thing. My mother used that one when she wanted my attention to have shoes on. "Ty needs you in 40." The number stops, at my teeth. The salt pinch loose shoved at me earns its keep. I press it to my tongue till it hurts. I spit into a wad of receipts and the paper drinks it like medicine. "He needs you in 409, I say out loud, to us, to the room, to the voice that thought it could take my mouth on a walk. Ty is in 409. On the monitor, Ty tips his head, as if a sound just threaded the hallway, my voice through a wire, or the shape of it through a wall. His hand slides off the jamb, back onto carpet that belongs to a room with a price. He looks like someone who just remembered stairs are taller at the top. The key taps once against the office threshold, gentle. Knock, like asking to be let back on the board. Like asking me to let it finish its roll and find the only door that fits it. The coin against my shoe warms, not heat so much as attention. Grady pops the red wax tin one-handed and smears a thick strip across the inside line of the doorway, a blood-bright bar. The key noses up to it and stops, not like a thing meeting. A wall. Like a dog meeting a rule. The brass darkens at the edges where the wax kisses it, a bruise blooming. Back, Grady says, and not to us. The key obeys an inch, then another. Then, with a tetchy little swivel, it angles toward the desk legs instead. Always a way around if a thing wants a mouth. Luce drops to her knees, sketching a rough circle on the linoleum with salt, fast and accurate, then pats the floor once like she's calling a child into a hula hoop. Here, she says. The key crosses into the circle and stops. It doesn't like the shape the grains make. It rocks twice, like it's trying to remember friction, then goes still. The coin at my shoe decides its game is over for now, too. The hum unwinds, a string let go. On the phone, the voice revises itself. Rye, it says, sweet again. Then it tries Ty's voice and almost nails it. Too many joints in the syllables, like the thing that wore his height in the parking lot. Buddy, can you... It loses patience and knocks inside my ear. Knock, knock, knock. Open the... Grady leans over the cradle and presses the hook switch with 2 fingers. He doesn't hang up. He interrupts. Like putting a hand over a mouth you love too much to let finish the sentence that will ruin you. He holds the switch half down, half up, balancing dial tone and knot, until the breath on the line gives up and drains away. You can't outtalk it, he says softly. You can outwait outwait. On the monitor, 409's snow wavers again. For one bright, treacherous frame, the screen doesn't show static or a sitcom. It shows a corridor I know with a number I don't. Ty doesn't look. He rubs his face with both hands and laughs at whatever the guest has said. The laugh is unsteady, but it lives. What does it want? I ask. Not because I think an answer will make anything safer, but because questions build fences and I need lumber. Grady looks at the key in its salt ring the way people look at sleeping snakes. It wants the shape of a hand, he says. The number is a road. The key is a promise. You put the 2 together and you get a lock that teaches the door your name. It already knows mine, I say. It's learning your handwriting, Luce says. She ties a red thread around her own wrist, a brace of color against the bones. Don't let it. The office light hums. Out by the road, a semi ghosts by without changing gears. The wind peels the V off vacancy and slaps it back. On. The lilies we didn't allow still manage to breathe once in my sinuses. Stubborn memory without a flower to blame. The phone finds its courage and rings once. The little window stays blank this time, as if the number decided we'd had enough. Arithmetic for one breath. In the north wing camera, a shadow moves in the stucco between 406 and 407, the kind of movement you only see when you tell yourself nothing moved. Grady closes the ledger and puts the wax tin on top of it like a paperweight. We hold, he says. We don't feed it with talk. We don't give it a hand. We wait for midnight to lose interest. How long does midnight take? I ask. Longer when you look at it, he says. The key twitches once inside its salty circle like a trapped insect testing a jar, then quiets. The coin by my shoe sighs itself cold. On the monitor, Ty leaves 409 without touching the jam. He looks down the north wing toward where a door never is and tips an invisible cap to nothing. Then he walks away fast enough to be dignified. The phone doesn't ring. The wind decides to breathe like something that isn't counting. For a minute, the motel remembers how to be rooms and roofs and rates. In that polite minute, I make the mistake of thinking the worst of it has passed. Somewhere between 4:06 and 4:07, 3 knocks answer my thought. And this time, the voice that follows doesn't take the phone. It uses the wall. It travels through concrete like bore sound, low and sure, and it doesn't try my mother or my friend or Ty. It says my sister's laugh. Then it says, cheerful as a dare, "Come on, Riley. Let's see if your circle works outside." The wall wears my sister's laugh like a scarf and dares me to step outside the drawing I made on the floor. Grady doesn't move for 3 heartbeats. Then he acts like a man who's done this enough times to know which part hurts. He flips the desk bell upside down and lowers it over the key. The brass dome makes a small, sucked air sound as it traps the oval in its salt ring. The clapper rests on the counter like a tongue that decided not to speak. The coin by my shoe warms once, like a goodbye, and goes slack. "Now we can walk," he says. Luce ties a new length of red thread around the bell's neck, then loops it, twice around the phone base, nodding with a neat, mean flourish. "In case it learns to hum through metal," she says. We step into the night with the motel's little armory. Salt deli cup, wax tin, Ty's rattling fan, a spool of thread, 2 extra do not disturb signs that say more than they mean. The air outside tastes like damp copper and syllables I don't want to learn. The vacancy sign thinks about losing its V, then keeps it out of spite. The walkway holds the cool of concrete that learned the day and forgot it. The gap between 4:06 and 4:07 isn't a gap. It's a promise not to become something else. Loose skims. Salt along both thresholds. Thin, chalky beaches. "For the ones that crawl," she reminds the dark. From 4:06, the woman's chain slides into place with a tired little cheek. The TV there changes channels without being asked and settles on a show where people cook in kitchens that never smell like anything. 4:07 is quiet the way a held breath is quiet. "Circle?" I ask, nodding at the stucco where a seam once almost remembered itself. "Circle," Grady says, but he's looking at the wind. Outside is mean to circles. We start one anyway. Luce pours a soft loop around the blank rectangle. Careful, slow. The wind noses it like a dog and lifts it in shining pinches. The line holds for 3 inches, then shivers apart. Salt grains skitter like startled fleas. "See?" Grady says. "It prefers a road." "Then we make the circle in the air," Luce says. She ties the red thread to 4:06's handle and draws it across the space, taut to 4:07's. The thread sings a little when the wind plucks it. She ties 3 knots on the far handle, small and wicked. Over that line, she hangs the extra "do not" disturb signs so they dangle like white tongues. Ty opens the fan and puts it on the concrete, pointed at the stucco. The blades whir to a tired life, pushing breath outward. "If lilies start up," he says, "we blow them back into the field." Behind us, deeper toward the office, the rotary phone gives one dignified ding as if to remind the night it's still, has manners. Under the bell, the trapped key answers with a faint scratch that travels through the wood and into my teeth. "Talk to me from here," the wall says. "Not through the wire now, through the concrete itself. The way a cello talks, through its whole body. The voice doesn't bother with strangers' mouths. It uses mine." "Riley," it says, the way my sister said it when she wanted me to come look at something she found in the creek. "Don't be a baby." The wind takes the word baby and folds it twice, then slides it under my ribs. I pinch salt, press it to my tongue, Let it remind me that I am meat and water and stubborn, not a door. The stucco between the doors darkens again, fractional, untheatrical. The thread quivers and tightens, sawing the air. A dent gathers in the wall's face, deepens, becomes the suggestion of a knob beneath paint. The do not disturb cards whisper against one another like gossip. Draft, Ty says, because we like to feed the thing different food. The smell of lilies arrives in a neat little wave and stops 2 feet from the thread, as if the air itself just hit a screen. The fan shoves the sweetness sideways. It washes down the walkway and breaks into pieces. Inside 406, the woman calls, small. "Is that you?" "Front desk," I say. "You're doing perfect. Keep the chain." The dent in the stucco swallows. A seam outlines itself and then un-outlines, like a mouth practicing. The thread dips as if something leaned on it from the other side. One of Luce's knots tightens, then tries to slip. The knot refuses with a sullen thrum. On the concrete at our feet, a coin panics into existence. No hand drops it. The metal buds from the seam like a blister and pops loose, rolling in a perfect slow arc toward me. I step on it. The hole frames a dime-sized circle of dark. Heat climbs through my soul like a warning that skipped committee. "Don't let it take you walking," Grady says, low. "What happens if it eats the thread?" Ty asks. "It learns how to sing in that key," Luce says. "So you tie it in, a different one." She knots a second line above the first, a red stave, then a third. The wind plucks a chord. The motel answers with the hum of a soda machine that thinks it's a choir. The wall doesn't like being played for. It makes a new move. The light under 406's door dims a sliver, as if something lay down on the other side of the threshold to listen. The salt line glows in the hall's light like a bleached rib. A black seam as thin as a hair writes forward from the door's bottom, stops at the salt, and tests it with a tiny sound. Tick. The line curls like a burned hair and retreats, offended. From 407's peephole, a dark circle stares that wasn't there before. My scalp remembers how to lift without permission. The wall tries another voice. Not mine now. Not my sister's. Not the boss's list. It chooses the suited man's lobby smooth and ruins it with hunger. "Riley," it says gently. Time for the usual. "You don't have a usual," I say before I can stop myself, and Luce's hand is suddenly on my arm, salt rough, as if to steady me against the slope of my own stupid mouth. "Don't give it your weather," she murmurs. "We hold. The thread holds. The seam plays at becoming and fails in tiny, angry, polite ways. If this is a test, it is one of patience and hands. Then the motel, helpful as a toddler, tries to kill us. The automatic ice machine at the end of the breezeway decides to purge. It coughs a bucket of slick cubes across the concrete like marbles, in a cartoon. Ty dances back with the fan, cursing soft and prayer-shaped. A scatter of ice takes the salt from one section of the line and erases it, neat as a teacher. The smell of lilies pushes through the hole, quick and happy. "Plug it," Grady snaps. Luz is faster than thought. She slaps the wax tin into my hand, flips the lid with her thumbnail, and drags a red bar across the open piece of air where salt used to be. Wax isn't a circle. It's a seal. It goes on thick and bright, an artery drawn where a road was. The lilies hit it and sour again like they learned a new swear. The thread goes tight enough to sing my fillings. A pale pressure bulges the stucco, then softens. The do not disturb cards knock each other twice, then hang, obedient. Somewhere, behind us inside the office, the trapped key under the bell scrapes a little anthem and stops. The phone does not ring. The vacancy sign hums itself a lullaby with the V intact. A truck goes by and doesn't look in. We stand there a long time, long enough for the wind to get bored with our shapes. The seam never opens. The voice grinds through a few more of my names and leaves them on the concrete like dead skins. The coin under my shoe cools, like a fever breaking. Grady lifts his chin toward the gap. "Tonight you lose," he tells the wall. Not brave, just scheduling. Try after midnight when we're uglier. The motel answers with nothing at all, which is as much victory as we ever get. "Leave the thread," Luz says, tying one last knot teeth tight. "Let it tangle on its own if it tries to be clever." Ty shoulders the fan and doesn't say draft. He says, "I hate this hallway, and that feels truer." We walk back toward the office. The salt we laid glitters like a thin galaxy. For a small, bright second, I think about how, in morning, the sun will find each grain and make it star. At the threshold, the desk bell pings once under my hand like a trapped heart. From the hallway, behind us, 3 knocks arrive, polite as ever, but farther away now, as if the house itself took a step back. "Circles work outside," I say, too quiet for anyone but me. For tonight, Grady agrees. And that's the kind of math we live with. Back in the office, the quiet has a weight to it. The bell over the trapped key sits like a helmet on a live grenade. The wax tin rides the ledger as a paperweight that knows too much. Luz shuts the door, flips the deadbolt, and dusts her palms, like she's just come in from gardening in the dark. Grady doesn't speak right away. He opens the bottom drawer, the one with batteries, lost sunglasses, a nest of motel pens that never write, and takes out a thin manila folder whose tab reads, "Maint. North Wing," in a hand that's not his. The folder's corner carries the pressed dent of a red triangle, no ink, just pressure, like a stamp that knows how to whisper. He sets it down and looks at me as if deciding whether to hand me a burn. Then he slides it over anyway. "Read. Don't memorize," he says. "If you hold it too cleanly, it holds you back." The first sheet is carbon paper, the blue kind that rubs off on your fingertips and makes everything look like a bruise. Typed lines, formal and tidy. Intake corridor, 404. Access denied to guests and untrained staff. Volatile prohibitions after. Dusk, floral, Aspergillium spp, ammonia compounds. Signal recognition pattern, 331. Do not name the number. Routing, mark with red. Return to sender. Margin notes thread alongside in a quick hand. Not Grady's, not mine. A clerk's hand, tidy until the edges fray. It likes the last voice you loved. If you answer at all, it learns your vowels. Numbers are roads. Keys are promises. Don't give it both. Kara, I say, even though we don't say names out loud here. The word leaves a draft in my mouth. Grady's jaw sets. She tried to annotate a thing that doesn't want footnotes. I turn the page. A Polaroid is taped. There. The kind that develops to truth at its own pace. The flash has burned a rectangle of stucco into the film. Our north wing, 405. A dark slice of nothing, 407. Only the camera didn't agree with reality that day. There's a number on the slice. Black paint pressed deep. 404. The photo has warped along that edge, as if the air was hotter there. In the lower corner of the glossy white border, someone has written, "Don't stand in doorways." Beneath it, lighter, like a thought rubbed in with a thumb. Doors stand in you. The phone gives a single disappointed ding. Not a ring, a thought. Under the bell, the trapped key twitches. The brass dome ticks as if a finger tapped it from inside. What happened to her? I ask, softer than I mean to. Grady keeps his eyes on the Polaroid like it might blink. She believed that naming a thing made it smaller, he says. She was right about most things, not this. One night she answered on purpose, gave it the number like a dare. It liked the taste. Luz reaches over my shoulder and taps a line Kara wrote near the typed 331. It always knocks polite. That's the joke. On cue, the bell over the key gives 3 tiny, perfect pings from inside the brass. Ding, ding, ding. Then one after a breath. Ding. It's almost cute, like a toy learning manners. I set the Polaroid down. My fingers come away blue. Why keep this? I ask. Why not burn the whole folder and salt the ash? Grady thinks about it. Or he pretends to, so I don't see the answer arriving. Because forgetting is a kind of door, too, he says. Someone always opens it. The security monitor blinks, annoyed with itself. For one frame, the north wing feed shifts a half-inch left, like a slide in a cheap projector. The gap between 406 and 407 holds. The red thread is still a stave across the space. The do not disturb tongues still whisper to one another. Then, the picture hops back. The hop leaves an afterimage my eyes don't want. A second pegboard just to the right of ours with all the brass ovals hanging in a neat, toothy smile, including one that shouldn't be. The afterimage is gone before my stomach's caught up. See it? I ask. No, Grady says, which might mean yes. He closes the folder and returns it to the drawer, like a priest returning a host to a locked box. We hold. We let midnight make its pass. We don't name roads. The phone inhales. The bell over the key hums like a bee in a glass. Somewhere out on the highway, a semi leans on its horn and the sound slides along the stucco like a wet hand. On the last page, Kara's handwriting slants toward a final line. If it learns your nickname, don't answer. If it learns your silence, leave. I fold the page closed with the care you use for a map you don't want to use again. The office clock clicks to 11:57. The wind puts its mouth on the V and almost takes it. Under the bell, something that remembers being a key waits for me to teach it the rest. 11:57 becomes 11:58 with a click that sounds like a picture frame straightening itself. The bell over the trapped key doesn't ring. It thrums, faint as a toothache. I can feel it in my gums more than hear it. Lus knots another red loop around. The phone base and checks the salt circle like a mother checking a sleeping child for fever. 59. The Crosswinds stops. Not quiet, stopped. No ice cough. No soda hum. No wind combing the neon. Even the vacancy sign seems to hold its light like a breath it doesn't want to let go in case something takes it. On the north wing monitor, the fan we left pointing at the stucco spins steadily. But it spins in a world that's suddenly behind glass. I raise my hand, rub thumb to forefinger. I can see skin catch on skin. I can't hear it. Sound has been filed away in a drawer with my name on it. Luce's eyes flick to me. She doesn't say it. The rule that Kara wrote. The one that tastes like leaving. But we both think it in the same shape. If it learns your silence, leave. Grady bristles like someone ran a hand backward over a cat. We can't leave guests, he says, to the ledger, to the wall, to the habit of being responsible for other people's mornings. We can step outside, Luce says. Carry our noise with us. Make the night come to us. The bell under my palm judders, 3 beats and 1, polite as ever but tinny, domesticated. 331. The phone doesn't ring. The little window stays blank like an eye that's shut but watching. The clock's second hand climbs toward the 12 and forgets. Why? It hangs 1 tick shy of midnight, trembling, as if time is the next room over and the wall is thick. Grady makes his choice. He cups the bell with both hands, key trapped beneath, and lifts it carefully, like a pie plate with something alive under it. We take the mouth with us, he says. Let the corridor talk to the bell and not to you. The office door opens, onto a world poured out of felt. The vacancy sign glows but makes no hum. The diner across the highway is a lit aquarium with its fish asleep. The stars are nails. My footfalls land like ideas. The smell of lilies arrives as sharp as a slapped hand. We move. Luce leads with the red thread spool. I follow with the salt. Grady brings the bell. Responsibility clinks against his ring of real. Keys like guilt. As we turn into the north wing, the thread we left, strung between 406 and 407, is there. Taut, singing in a way my ears don't admit. The do not disturb cards hang still, tongues made of paper and rules. A pale coin glides across the concrete from no direction at all and kisses my shoe, then pivots, pointing, not toward the lot, not toward the office, toward the blank stucco. That wants to be a door. I don't pick it up. I don't name it. I step over it the way you step over a snake that's decided to be a stick. Luce throws the thread over, nodding high and mean, doubling our stave. I pour a circle where the wall tried to learn a seam. The grains hit and stick without sound. The lilies press and fail, their sweetness puckering at the wax we painted earlier. The fan turns. The thread vibrates. The cards do a tiny paper nod. From inside 406, a chain slides, silent, and stops. On the screen of my attention, time pretends to start again. 11:59's trembling becomes a step, but the second hand doesn't land. It hovers like a moth that forgot which light to die against. The wall moves without moving. The paint darkens in one long stroke, like a sentence being written from the other side. A vertical mark, then a diagonal. The first half of a 4 presses up through stucco as if someone is tracing the number into the motel's skin with a chilled finger. Grady lowers the bell against the stucco. The trapped key knocks from inside the brass. 331, answering the corridor with a schoolteacher's patience. The vibration runs into the wall. The forming stroke hesitates, as if correcting a letter. I feel the lack of wind on, my cheeks like hands. The highway is a picture. My own heartbeat is something I have to remember to do. The motel doesn't breathe. The corridor waits. The number tries again, slower, careful. The first line of the 4 finishes, and the diagonal begins. The diagonal begins to carve itself up through the paint, slow, careful, like a cold finger practicing handwriting on our wall. Luce loops the red thread higher and tighter until it makes a figure 8 between the handles, a sideways hourglass. "If it wants straight roads," she mouths, "give it a knot." Grady presses the bell harder to the stucco. Under the brass, the trapped key answers with that patient schoolteacher rhythm, 331, as if knocking a metronome onto the corridor's wrist. The vibration runs into the forming stroke. It falters, resumes, falters again, like a pen hitting salt. No wind, no hum. The fan spins in a museum of air. The lilies press to the edge of our wax and wilt there. Sweetness turned to something like metal. The wall tries my sister's laugh, bright and easy, and then speaks in my throat. Riley, don't fuss. Just open. It's not using the phone now. It's using me where I stand. I pinch salt, burn my tongue on it, and keep my mouth shut. The diagonal lengthens. It will reach the crossbar next. And after that, the number becomes a door, and the door becomes a mouth, and we become a lesson. Break the letter, Grady says. How? My voice comes out wrapped in cotton. Make it wrong. Lus rips the wax lid with a thumbnail and drags a bright, thick smear across the unborn crossbar's path, a red wound that says no in an alphabet everything understands. The diagonal meets the wax and stutters like a needle finding a scratch on a record. Tries again, stutters longer. The thread sings, and the do not disturb cards lift and settle as if a breath just failed to arrive. A pale coin clicks against my boot and waits, polite as a tip. I don't pick it up. I tow it into the salt ring we poured under the seam, centering the hole on the place the crossbar would touch if the stroke could finish. The brass under the bell knocks 331 again. Patient, 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 until I feel the pattern in my gums, in my wrists, in the second hand that refuses to land on the clock the way it should. Again, I whisper, to the key, to the bell, to whatever listens. Grady's knuckles whiten on the bell. 3, 3, 1. The pattern rides the red wax like a seamstress's stitch. The diagonal dims a shade, like a wrong answer lightly erased. The corridor, offended, makes its last play. It steals the light under 406 and 407, pulls it into the seam, and grows a deeper dark, the kind that remembers teeth. The lilies bloom hard and then burn sugar. The figure 8 thread jerks so tight it bites the metal, red notched into chrome. The key knocks its lesson again. 3, 3, 1. I press the coin flatter with my shoe until the hole frames nothing but wax and the thought of a crossbar that won't be born. The second hand on the office clock, nowhere and everywhere, quivers like a moth desperate for a flame that isn't there. Come on, I tell the room, the wall, the night. Not a prayer, a schedule. 3, 3, 1. The hand lands. Midnight rolls in like a lung finally allowed to exhale. Sound pours back. Fan whir, soda hum, ice cough, highway hiss, the fragile buzz of the V in vacancy. The lily's sweetness breaks and runs thin. The diagonal fades one more shade, then another, until it is only a bruise in paint, and then only paint. The wall forgets the number. The bell under Grady's hands gives a real bright ding, not polite, not encoded, startled as a bird. The key goes quiet. The coin under my shoe cools from attention to metal. We stand there listening to the ordinary. It's astonishing how loud it is. Luce reties the figure 8 as a plain, ugly knot. Leave it till dawn, she says, breath coming back in little. Fogs. Grady eases the bell away. The brass oval lies inside the salt circle like something that once meant us harm and now just wants to be heavy. He doesn't touch it. He sets the bell back over it, then plants the wax tin on top like a crown. House. Holds, he says. He looks older and somehow steadier. Ugly midnight like I promised. We walk the corridor. 406's chain still set. 407's peephole is only dark glass again. The Do Not Disturb cards swing softly, gossiping in paper voices, then go still. Back. In the office, the clock reads 12:03. The ledger sits where we left it. The manila folder sleeps in its drawer. The phone inhales once as if about to be difficult, then thinks better of it. I take my hand off the salt pinch I didn't know I was still holding. My tongue tastes like the ocean, and an argument I won on the counter. Something small knocks once, tick, as if reminding me we're not finished, just adjourned. I look. The coin is not under my shoe anymore. It sits on the desk by my elbow, whole turned toward me, framing a dime-sized circle of my face. I tape 7 rules inside the locker and write, "Get in, get paid, get out." Outside, the wind finally picks a direction. The coin waits on my dash, warm, its hole framing the road, proof enough that monsters are real and that I'm done with this place.